Hi guys, Tugger here with a new video, and this video will be my Fatality build for Arms Warrior in PvP. It will of course be a mini guide. I will make my full Arms Warrior guide whenever the Season 1 will start. I will be playing a few games into Season 1 where I can actually test those things into Solo Shuffle and also into 3v3 in RBGs, and I'm going to give you a full guide on that. But I'm going to now give you mini guides. I've made already one guide about the Mortal Strike build where you could have max damage Mortal Strike, which is super fun. I will put that guide into the description but also in the comments, and I will also put the build of this guide into the comment section below so you can actually copy it and try it for yourself. It is the Fatality build. So this build isn't the easiest to play because you do lose Bladestorm. Big disclaimer. So you don't play with Bladestorm, which is something that a lot of warriors can't, because Bladestorm gives you a lot of immunities to CC, to slows, to roots. Like, Bladestorm is a overall good ability to actually press whenever you are in a pinch, and sometimes, often, it will do enough damage to actually justify the press. But with Fatality, with the Fatality build, you can actually like do insane amounts of damage, and I will show you, of course, the build. So we are going to talk about stats, I'm going to talk about the build, I'm going to talk about strength and weaknesses, and I'm going to show you a bit the rotation, I would say burst rotation, but I'm going to explain it because Fatality is something that is going to be very nice to build up in a fight whenever you feel like you can't put people under 35%, and whenever you're doing like a 35% execute, then it will do a satisfying amount of damage. But that's of course a bit better in arenas than in BGs. I feel like this is more of an arenas playstyle build, and I'm going to talk about why in the strength and weakness section. You will see the timestamps below, so you can also jump ahead or jump back whenever you want extra explanation about specific things. Now let's talk about the gear set and the stats that I'm actually allocating towards that build. So I tested a lot of things. I have a lot of honor. Now I have not, because I like used all my honor to actually buy a lot of pieces, a lot of stats, like different stats, to actually test a lot of things. But in my opinion, the crit stat always feels right. I like to play around crits because I like to crit my stuff. I like to crit my execution. I like to crit my more strikes, my Colossus Smash. Everything I do, whenever I crit, it really feels alright, and I know that I'm going to chunk the enemy team. Of course, I try to build also a bit of haste, because haste does feel alright, and you can, of course, Colossus Smash or Warbreaker if you prefer, to actually get a haste boost whenever they are like above a specific threshold. You get 10%, and under a specific threshold you will get 20%. I will discuss about it into the class build. So we went for crit, and we have like minimum mastery. To be honest, it comes from my weapon. I could just remove it, but I like the splash damage that it can give. It is between 444 and 825. I'm not in PvP at the moment, while my other weapons, here I have one that gives crits, but it is 555 and 714. So it means that the max damage that I want to produce isn't as high with the mace than with the pole arm. So I prefer to have a max damage, although the difference is very big. It could do less damage than the mace, but I prefer this splash of damage, because a lot of people actually ask that, and I prefer to have a mastery weapon. I don't really have a choice there because of the splash damage that it gives. Also, I wear 2 sets of the World PvP set. It gives me versatility by like 105. I've tested in PvP, in BGs, in arenas. It does work. People say that it doesn't work, but it does work. I'm not taking the 4 set or the 6 set. We only take the second, like the 2-piece, to get that increase in versatility. So in PvP, I have like 30%, and whenever I switch out those 2 pieces with honor pieces, I get 30%, 29 or 28% of versatility. So in my opinion, versatility is, like, I would say, stacking is still very good for warriors, so I keep with this. Of course, strength is still basically the best stat that you can go for, so you want always to go for the highest eye level items. I'm working through the head and boots pieces for my crafting. I need to unlock it. I'm going to show you guys the pieces that I really want. It is the Inferior's helm and Inferior's boots. I'm working for it, like Primal Chaos. I need like this. That's like not a lot. But the problem is I don't have the recipe, and a lot of people that have the recipe sells it for 2 million, and I'm not so well off, I would say. So I cannot buy that and make it for myself. But soon, hopefully, whenever it drops, I'll be able to make it. So now let's talk about the interesting parts, because not everyone wants to talk let me like hear, I would say, talking about stats, because I did that in my previous video about my guide for the maximum mortal strike damage. Now it will be more or less less damage, I would say, upfront from mortal strike, but more about the execute damage that you can do in execute phase. Of course, again, Fatality is nerfed in PvP. It got buffed previous patch, but it is still nerfed by, I don't know, 66%. Like right now it does 20k, but whenever you're doing PvP, I'm going to show you guys real quick. So whenever you hit like a dummy, for example, you are in PvP, it does 10k, so it's nerfed by 50%. And you can stack it up to 5 times, but hopefully you don't need to stack up to 5 times because the enemy would be dead. But in the case where you're very unlucky, they have a healer and they top it off every time, you will get 5 stacks, which is 50k, and then you will do 1 execute, hopefully you crit, and it will do like a one-shot potential. It will basically one-shot by that point, right? Because you're going to do execute, which is more or less like non-crit between 30 and 45, depending if you have Colossus Smash or not, and if it crits, it's right around 80k, 100k, depending on, again, buffs like Avatar, Colossus Smash, or your Trinket. So let's talk about the build and the few things that are actually interchangeable. You can change it by yourself, but I'm going to link this build down in the description and also in the comments, so you can actually look it up, test it for yourself, and have fun with it. So a few things that you should keep in mind. In BGs, you don't really need intervene, so you could remove intervene and put it in second wind or inspiring presence. Second wind is quite nice in BGs because you have like some downtimes where you could need a healer to top you yourself, or instead of that you can take second wind and you will be topping yourself like very quickly. Inspiring presence is something that you can take, and it will do a 20% in temporary and maximum health. And a viewer of mine, Michael, I think, thank you for suggesting it in the comments. You can indeed put bitter immunity and rallying cry into one macro. So basically this macro. So he suggested the macro, so it's a rallying cry with bitter immunity. They both have 3 minutes. So basically every time you're going to do a rallying cry, you will do sick amounts of healing on yourself. Instead of like pressing individual keys, you can just press this and it will heal you and rallying cry directly. And if you can see the amount that it healed, for example, bitter immunity did 45k. I really overhealed, by the way. And whenever you're not doing that, you only heal for 30k, for example. So you can see for yourself if it's worth it to make a macro or not. So the things that I could say that are interchangeable is leeching strikes. If you don't like the leech, you can also just opt out. I like the leash. For some reason, I healed myself for a lot over a whole course of the game, like BGs and also arenas. So I like it. It's like passive healing. A lot of classes have that, and with your deep wounds also being buffed next patch by 20%, so you will have 85% healing by deep wounds, if I'm not mistaken, or 80%, like something like that. You will have insane passive healing, which is quite nice to have in BGs and also in solo shuffle, where your healer could, for example, get like stunned, and you will have some passive healing topping you off. You have also some things like, for example, Wrecking Throw. I would suggest everyone to play Wrecking Throw in BGs. In arenas, it's a bit different, because if you're not playing versus warlocks, or you're not playing versus a disc priest or someone that can actually shield, Wrecking Throw is not as efficient, but even versus classes where you would think Shattering Throw is better, Wrecking Throw can destroy Avenger's Shield, Avenging Shield. I think that's the shield that paladins are putting on themselves to implode. I don't know the name anymore. Silly me. But whenever you're doing Wrecking Throw, that shield busts, so you can actually slow the paladin, go back, Wrecking Throw, it will bust the shield, and you will not take the damage because you're far enough to not take the damage, right? So that's a sympathetic mechanic that you can do with Wrecking Throw, but also Dark Pact. Whenever you're doing Avatar or Colossus Smash and you're doing Wrecking Throw, that Dark Pact is going to get deleted, for example. I really like it. And Shattering Throw, it's something that is always going to be useful versus immunities, but I find, especially in BGs, you don't really need a Shattering Throw, but also in arenas sometimes with all those mini CCs, you don't even get a Shattering Throw like cast off, right? So if you're playing with the priest, you don't really need that because you have like Master Spell, improved Master Spell, which is super easy to get as a priest. So you don't really need Shattering Throw, and I really like Wrecking Throw, especially with the PvP talent Demolition. It just gives you that oomph to actually remove all shields that are really bothering you. Especially like, for example, Disc Priests that are doing Ruptures, you can just stun him, Wrecking Throws to just get that shield out of the way, and then you can just one-shot him, right? I play with Pain and Gain. It's not really something that you can go for. You don't need to, but I like it. Again, passive healing, you will just sustain yourself. If you want to play fast footwork, that's also a possibility. If you want to be more of a utility bot, you can go with Berserker Shout and help people to get free from fears, saps, and incaps. Especially good in arenas. Versus specific classes, like for example Mistweavers, they can like incap you, if not you, but your ally, and you can like basically save them from a free leg sweep, right? So you can just use Berserker Shout and it will get a freedom like effect where you are not going to get CC'd and you can maybe move out of the way of the leg sweep, or you can counter CC the monk. Again, I think overall I really like this build on the class tree, and we're going to talk about a few things. Since it is a Fatality build and you're not playing with Bladestorm, I would not recommend going for Blade Master's Torment. You want the Recklessness effect, although it seems small because it's only a 3 seconds or 4 seconds duration. It's very nice because if you can crit your stuff, it's going to be very valuable to kill targets with it. Whenever you're doing Colossus Smash, often than not you want to do a lot of damage. You don't want to just like tempo. So basically you're going to do Colossus Smash and then, for example, an Execute, or Colossus Smash with 2 stacks of Overpower with a Sharpened Blade and Moral Strike, for example. Or you can do Colossus Smash with Spear of Bastion and then you do Off Avatar to get a longer duration on Recklessness and then go for a one-shot. So I really like this interaction. I also like to play with Cruel Strikes and going into Spear of Bastion. I think Spear of Bastion is like something that you're always going to go for. Maybe with Bleeds, you're not going to go as deep. Maybe just Spear of Bastion and maybe Elysian Might. But I really like this build. I'm going to talk about Fatality, but in the next video, I don't know when, maybe 3 days, 4 days, I'll do the bleed build and I will cover every build that I have until season 1, and at season 1 I will do a big arms guide. So if you want to check that out, please subscribe to the channel before we went live with that video, of course. So let's talk about the arms tree. Not much has changed, except, you know, you lose Bladestorm and you lose Hurricane. I really like that combo for the Moral Strike maximum damage. Again, guides is in the description if you want to see the previous guide about that build. It's a very fun build. I really like it, and I do insane damage with Moral Strikes. I did like 2 BG videos about that build, so you can also check that out. So pretty much this build revolves around Fatality, revolves around Executioner's Precision, because you want to actually do a lot of executions execute with this build. So you will improve your Moral Strike and then have like a combo with Battle Lord, which is a fantastic talent. It improves your overpower and has a chance to reset the cooldown of Moral Strike. whenever you're doing that. It's very, very good. But also you have accelerating blows, which also resets the cooldown of mono strike when used. So you will have a lot of mono strike. You won't feel like you're like missing keys to press whenever you're like attacking someone, and I feel like it's very fun to play around that. It's very, very hard to play that build though. It's not an easy build because you don't play with Bladestorm, and Bladestorm, again, like I said in the beginning of the video, it immunes you versus the movement impairing effects, but also loss of control. And in general, you are safe whenever you're doing Bladestorm. You can also just do die by the sword while Bladestorming. So again, I like Bladestorm, but this build is also very fun to play. I feel like it's a bit risky. I'm going to go straight to the strengths and weaknesses of that build. There's not a lot of variety in that build. You play pretty much always like this. You could remove Blood Surge and go for Storm Wall. That's a possibility. And then you go back to the points that you have spent with Sharpened Blade and Executioner's Precision. But again, depending on comps, if you're playing in arenas and you're not playing versus melees, you should not go for Stormwall. Good thing is, Stormwall is very good versus, let's say, Demonology Warlocks, because the pets are going to hit you and you will heal yourself with it. So they're not going to call off their pets when they see Die by the Sword often, because they don't see it coming, but it really heals you for a lot. But I like this build the most because I like the regen on bleeds, because you want to do a lot of executes, you want to do a lot of moral strikes, you want to do a lot of overpowers to get those moral strikes back. So again, I feel like this build is really it. You can play with Warbreaker if you really want to, but I like to have Colossus Smash doing more damage because it really hits for a lot. I crit for 80k sometimes, and 80k Colossus Smash, which is basically something that is going to improve your damage, is something very, very noticeable. Like someone is like literally saying I throughout the monitor, right? So I really find it very fun to play around it. The strengths and weaknesses of that build. Strength is you have a lot of execute power. So whenever someone is very, very low HP, like let's say like even 20%, because 30% is a bit too precise. I would say 20%, and you're doing an execute, even with 1 or 2 stacks, they are going to feel it. The only problem I see is it can't crit, so there is no surprise damage behind it. The weakness about that build is also you need to stack it, and it has a high chance, so it could also be no chance. And then that whole build is just going to fall into the water. But in longer matches where you can actually stack fatality stacks, it can do a lot of damage. Like again, you saw in PvP you get only half of the effect, so it's 10k instead of 20k with my gear. If you stack it 5 times, it will be 50k. And whenever you're doing an execute and you're critting, someone is going to disappear because 30% of 400k is not 200k, right? So whenever you're doing a 150k execute with fatality stacks, he's going to get deleted. So I really like that aspect. You're very, very much an executioner, and you want to stick into the battle with overpower, with battle lord, actually doing a lot of damage. Like I crit 40k for overpower, which is really nice because again, overpower is used as a filler to actually stack up your moral strikes, and if it also does damage, I mean, it's still something. You should also like remember 40k overpower. You can compare it with a big conflag from Destruction Warlocks. A conflag from my Destruction Warlock, which is fully geared, does around 35k, 38k whenever it crits. So I mean, it's free. You're a melee. You're doing a lot more damage than, let's say, Destruction Warlock. And as a whole, you have a lot more execution, damage execute effects towards the enemy. Again, you're not like a execute bot because you have executioner's precision to improve your moral strike, and you have sharpened blades to actually improve your damage with crits, but also your chance to crit with execute. Now, whenever it's going to get nerfed, because it is going to get nerfed by 5%, you could remove sharpened blades and go for Bladestorm, and then you have the best of both worlds. This build is a bit less oomphy, I would say, because it does a lot less damage with crits, But if you're playing like more hasty or more with mastery, you could play with Bladestorm to give you a escape. Because basically you're going to Bladestorm not for the damage, because it's not going to do a lot of damage with this build, but it will be a good escape or a good gap closer. I'm tempted to sometimes change it because they will nerf it, but I remember that there is a lot of modifiers towards crit, because you have like sharpened blade, you have impale, you have cruel strikes for the crit damage on execute, you have of course the 5% two-handed weapons damage. So all of this is actually going to give you a great modifier towards the damage that you want to produce in BGs and in arenas. But anyways, this is more or less the build. Weaknesses, because I talk a lot of strengths and a bit of weaknesses, but main weakness is you lose on CDs, because again, Bladestorm is a big CD, to be honest, to just get out of stuns. Not stuns, but roots, slows. Some people stun into Bladestorm. Sometimes that millisecond whenever a stuns go onto you and you're Bladestorming, it looks like a trinket. I don't know if you already noticed it as an arms warrior, but whenever you're Bladestorming just at the right time, whenever a stun is coming to you, it looks like you're trinketing that stun. And it really feels like it. It feels like a bug, really, but Bladestorm can really be a savior on a few occasions, and I really like it. PvP talents, since you're not playing with Bladestorm, you don't need to play Storm of Destruction, so you can play Warbringer, you can play Disarm if you really, really want to, or you can even play Master and Commander, but I feel like, again, it's your choice. You can. There's a lot of great things PvP talents wise. I'm going to cover it in my biggest guide for arms warriors. So this is more or less the build. Let's talk about the rotation. So basically, you want to kill the enemy, right? So you don't really want to, let's say, only stack executes and wait for sudden deaths, right? So you want to do damage at all times. But what I would suggest is to unload whenever you have like one stack of the executioner's precision. So at least, so you can actually do a lot more damage on Moral Strike. But also just in general, if you have a sudden deaths proc, it's always nice to then go for a burst rotation, like for example this. You're going to do a lot more damage, like 60k normal hit is actually very good. And now you have the Fatality proc, and you're going to unload your load, I would say, towards the enemy. The good thing is, again, it does a lot of damage. Whenever they are very low HP, you're going to notice that you're going to kill the enemy. If you're going to stun them and they don't have a trinket, they're pretty much dead. If they don't have a healer behind them, they're pretty much dead. If the healer is CC'd in arenas, they're pretty much dead at that point. So you have a lot of great things. Again, look at this. I did a 120k Mortal Strike crit, and that's without Colossus Smash. And without Avatar. So you should understand that the damage is very, very high for arms warriors. They are very, very high. I did an overpower of 58k because Battle Lord. Because I say it's a Fatality build, but you can also see it as a Battle Lord build. It does insane amount of damage. All the procs that you get to get Mortal Strikes are also very, very good. Your execute, unfortunately, I didn't really crit whenever I was like in my post rotation, but you see my fatal mark did 51k, so I had 5 stacks of fatal mark, and you already see the point I'm going to make. Whenever they are very low HP, they are like a 40k, 50k HP, and you're unloading everything into the enemy, they are not going to survive it, especially if the healer is CC'd, or just anything, right? If they are like not paying attention, or you interrupt them like the healer because they're next to the DPS, and then you're going to sweeping strikes and try to cleave them. Again, you can go for Warbreaker in those situations, but depending on comps, if you're playing versus Caster Cleaves, you don't really need Warbreaker. You want to have Closer Smash because of the damage and also the duration. But you already see that the damage is really impressive, right? If I have 2 stacks of the Executioner's Precision, I have like 2 stacks of Overpower. I can do just Colossal Smash into a Spear of Bastion, into Avatar, into big damage. I mean, I think you should understand the amount of damage I'm doing. Like, it's ridiculous. Look at this. I do a 230k crit on Mortal Strike. you do realize like people have 400k health right now. So basically I'm doing a 50% hit, like crit, on the enemy. And that's the reason why I'm playing with crit, because crit is very satisfying to play. I come from classic, right? I love vanilla, I love TBC, I love warlock. And with all those expansions, crit is something you get for free. Basically, arms warriors have like 35% crit. You have resilience to actually like try to balance it out, but often you have enough crit to do a lot of damage. And I know in Shadowlands, crit stacking was not something that you went for. You wanted to have a lot of haste or either mastery. But I feel like in this expansion, Dragonflight, crit is such a great component into the arena, into the PGs, that really it's super satisfying whenever you're doing a crit at the right time. Someone is going to get deleted, and that's the reason why I play crit. So anyways, this is my little build guide. I would say if you want to test it out, please test it out. It is very, very fun. I will make, of course, a bleed guide and also a whirlwind guide going up, and also a bleed guide. But I wanted to test it like more in BGs. Like I spam BGs all day long with my arms warrior. Like I really like the warrior feel at the moment. I played a bit of Fury, but I feel like a bit dirty whenever I'm playing Fury. I'm not gonna lie, I just prefer arms. It's more methodical, it's very, very fun. I would suggest a lot of people to actually try arms. Even the people that are very, very negative towards arms, you're going to enjoy your time. If you feel like it's dying too quickly, it's true, it's a easy target to kill. But with the amount of self-heal that you have with deep wounds, with the amount of leech that you can produce, with the amount of CDs that you can actually have, with Die by the Sword, with Impending Victory that a lot of people are actually forgetting about, and with Rallying Cry, with Bitter Immunity, you have a lot of ways to actually survive 1v1s, 1v2s. Of course, there's a point in a game where you don't have CDs and you're going to die, but all classes have that. Warlocks without Dark Pact, and they don't have like a drain life. I would say if they are destruction warlocks, they're going to die. If you're playing versus a fire mage and they don't have cauterize, they don't have ice block, they're going to die. If you're playing versus a frost mage and you have like melee pressure onto the frost mage, he's going to die. And you should understand that all classes have that, and the classes that don't have that, like for example a demon hunter or a shadow priest or an affliction warlock, they are anomalies. They should get nerfed, and they will be nerfed probably next patch or in 2 weeks or 3 weeks time, but they will get nerfed. And you will see that arms warriors, they are very competitive, and of course we will talk about it in the next video. But thank you for watching this video. I really appreciate you. Again, all the links into the description, all the builds into the comments, and if you want to test everything out and let me know what you think about those builds, please do. I always try to respond to all comments, and yeah, I really appreciate arms. Please like the video if you like the video, please subscribe to the channel if you like those kinds of content, and be sure to stay safe. We will catch each other very soon in the next video. Have a great day. Bye. Tell me what's wrong and why you never said you felt that way. Guess you're trying to stay strong and fake a smile until I look.